Welcome back to the Three Dorks Discuss Nintendo with Kingdom Hearts in the background.
I was actually going to get on Three Dorks ranting about video game companies, but that works too.
Well, okay. I gotta reiterate something we were talking about before the video started, because yes, we do actually speak to each other in between the videos. I know. It's shocking.
What? It's not just a silent void?
I was about to say,
Yes.
what, we don't just pretend to like each other on camera?
Well, I mean, me and Ryan are married, but is that just for views?
Is it kind of like how all of our... Is it kind of like how my 2 smelting accidents were actually just for views?
Yes.
How many...
Do not release that to the public.
I was about to say, did you guys watch the last few episodes of Kingdom Hearts after you heard that I was dead?
They might have.
I know I did.
To continue kind of off of what you were saying, Matt, about Nintendo kind of trying to focus on more creating innovative experiences for people, like, while I agree they're doing some, like, neat stuff with, like, their console things, I just, like,
It's
I
coming
can't
at a
help...
risk, or it's coming out of a price of console power, if you ask me.
It's coming at a price of console power, but it's also, like, PlayStation, and I'm not even going to talk about Xbox because, like, we don't play Xbox stuff. Like, Ryan has an Xbox One and 360 and a original Xbox and stuff.
You know what would be really useful
But-
right now? The only member of Three Dorks who used an Xbox regularly.
Yeah.
Like, he kind of took early retirement.
Yes.
But yeah, I
like,
agree. Like, when
PlayStation's also doing innovative stuff, and they're also creating, like, new IPs all the time. Like, because, like...
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, honey.
I was going to say, that was the case, but it seems like nowadays I've seen reports that they're going a much safer route, where they want all their games to be, like, big blockbuster games now.
But that's still...
That's going to be a problem in the future.
It's going to be an
ask
issue,
Nintendo,
but I also...
exactly.
I like the fact that they're doing a lot of, like, original stuff. Because, like, you have a lot of studios that are... like, obviously, you know... Naughty Dog is exclusively a PlayStation thing. They're essentially a Sony subsidy, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, they're creating these experiences in games that are just like, I can't even describe to you how beautiful of an experience like The Last of Us and Uncharted are. And every single one of the series feels different. And I don't know how to describe it. I'm not trying to like shit on Nintendo. Far from it. It's just more like Sony is doing the same thing that Nintendo is doing,
But they're
with doing
doing it a little
innovative experiences for people, but they're doing more original things as well as doing like their series. And Nintendo is really only doing...
They're putting all of their eggs into 1 or 2 baskets.
Yes.
Like, unfortunately, Nintendo can't really talk too much about Fire Emblem because everybody who's a Smash fan just sits there and shits on Fire Emblem like it's the goddamn worst franchise they've ever done. Which I think is wholesomely unfair. But...
Well, to be fair, it's because... in that case, especially, it's because people wanted stuff in Smash Brothers that, like, kept getting looked over in favor of Fire Emblem things, and I think it was starting to piss people off.
I can understand when 2 games in a row have a Fire Emblem DLC character, but, like, again, I think there's a massive difference between complaining about how many Fire Emblem characters there are and complaining about how many times Marth's moveset has been reused. Because if you were to take away the other 3 characters who make use of Marth's moveset, Fire Emblem has been dropped down to 5 unique reps, which is on par with The Legend of Zelda, which does still sound pretty disappointing because Zelda's a much bigger franchise with such a small amount of rep. But, like, other than that, Star Fox seems to be that franchise now that's just literally living on its glory days, and it's not working much anymore.
Yeah.
Donkey Kong is another franchise that just kind of gets overlooked. Even though, like, the original Donkey Kong trilogy, if I recall correctly, was a very highly received trilogy back in the SNES era. Metroid's another one of those slow-dripping franchises that it's got a big cult following. I mean, Ryan here loves his Metroid, right?
Yeah, Metroid's really nice.
And, again, as someone who's never played a Metroid title, it's hard for me to really speak too much about it. But, like, Metroid Dread did really good, did it not?
Yeah, I think it's one of the better selling games now.
And then Metroid 2, Metroid 2, what was that? That was a remake of a game, right?
Metroid 2 Electric Boogaloo?
Metroid 2
No.
Electric Boogaloo.
Return of Samus was a remake of the second game.
So Super Metroid?
No, Super Metroid is the third game.
Oh, okay. So yeah, like, and I heard that one did pretty decent, did it not?
I think so.
I think the only Metroid game I can understand in recent history that kind of wasn't a big thing was the Federation Force on the 3DS, which got a lot of heat thrown at it.
Okay, here's a question, and I want to ask what you guys think about this. Just again, because, like, I'm not super, like, you know, as much as I like the idea of having a Switch and stuff, Ryan has a good point that I just don't use even his enough to warrant a purchase.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, hon, you'll be happy my interest in buying one has died down. It seems like Nintendo does this thing where, like, they're not dropping, like, they don't drop a ton of, like, original stuff, which is fine. Well, it's not fine. I think ultimately it's gonna be what, like, ends Nintendo's relevancy for stuff. Because their consoles are not powerful enough to even come close to keeping up with something like the PS5 or the
Xbox Series 1.
Yeah.
Or Series X.
Yes. It seems like a lot of what Nintendo does is, like, spit out games from, like, their beloved trilogies when they're starting to, like, lose relevancy with stuff. And then it's, like, a lot of what Nintendo does, I feel like, is almost, like, building off people's nostalgia for things.
Yes,
And it's not about making stuff that it's,
Yeah.
like, people are really actually gonna love. It's more, like, appealing to the nostalgia for people.
Let me attempt. I'm going to definitely build on this because this year, I'm just gonna go right to it.
Yeah.
Mario Party Superstars. I gush about that game a lot. I absolutely love it. In no doubt do I feel like you are entirely right on that because Mario Party Superstars feels more like an attempt to cash grab people's nostalgia for the franchise. And the Top 100 did the same. They were definitely catering to the people who grew up with the franchise, and that's their means of getting a quick buck out of it because Superstars has so much potential, and as much as I would love to see that potential get tapped, this feels like another one-off. This feels like just something they were using to get a quick buck out of the people who loved the games when they were growing up.
It's like, I almost feel like that's what they do with a lot of their things now, though.
It does
It's
feel
like-
like that.
They just put out stuff that's, like, I would argue almost like the one exception to that is, like, Breath of the Wild, because that feels very, from what I've seen, because I watched Ryan play it,
It's a new
like,
experience.
It feels different to other Zelda games.
It is. It's like, okay, now a lot of people now here's the ultimate problem. A lot of actual Zelda fans were like, this doesn't feel like a Zelda experience. But at the same time, I think that's maybe for the better because now that Zelda game is an entirely new experience that
Yeah.
Zelda has not done yet before. And that's what its greatest strength is. It's different. It's new. It actually can... Breath of the Wild can wear the new title better than any new Super Mario Bros. Game can.
Well, like, I can't remember, Johan, you'll have to correct me on this if, like, I'm wrong, but didn't, like, Caddy talk in a video, or was it Scott the Waz who talked in a video about how, like, Nintendo was obviously, like, the powerhouse of consoles for a while, because Sony just, like, wasn't a thing yet. But then, like, as soon as the PS1 came out, and it's like, it's more powerful, it's, you know, you can do more things with it than you can on the N64.
Well,
you had games that were dedicated Nintendo things switching over to Sony. And it's like, because they're not, you know,
here's the thing.
they're not focusing on doing, like, stronger consoles that can handle stronger games. They're just, okay, well, what can we play Mario on?
Nintendo may have been the reason why the video game market is not a complete shit show because it is true, they revived the video game market. with the NES.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at some point, you gotta start living up to a bit more than just being innovative. I kind of would like them to go back to a GameCube era where they focused more on a powerful console that could play a little bit more or expand their games a little bit more.
Yeah. And I would love to see them develop something fresh and new other than here is a port of, you know, and again, I'm saying this as somebody who really enjoys the game so far, like, here's a port of Miitopia. Here's, you know, a new Metroid game.
Let's be 100% real. The Miitopia port was just another means to save the 3DS's library. Because, like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of Nintendo's current marketing plan is also, hey, we had a pretty failure of a console just now. Let's save as much of the good games from that as we possibly can. And I think they're doing a little bit of that with the 3DS as well.
Yeah. It's
Which
just, it's
I think it's too early for. I think it's too early to be talking too much about the 3DS's library, considering you guys just finished that era. It was an amazing era. It was also an era that suffered a little bit too much from a console that was not strong enough to handle half of what it was playing.
Yeah.
But no doubt about it, the 3DS was an amazing era.
Oh, I would agree. I had a DS and a 3DS back in the day, and I liked both of them. Like, no, the graphics weren't, like, amazing, the, you know, stuff like that, but it was fun. But it's just...
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna try to make what we're playing a little bit relevant right now.
They just need to... I want to see Nintendo succeed with stuff, but I want them to, like, try to develop something new for the newer generation of people rather than just focusing on
the same old
stuff. Because you know what? As much as Mario is cool and as much as Zelda is cool,
as much as they're recognizable, they need to start picking it up if they're going to keep the audience
exactly.
engaged.
Because, like, the unfortunate thing is that, like, a lot of the people who were playing stuff like Mario or Pokemon and stuff as a kid, you know, yes, that nostalgia is still there, but, like, is the nostalgia gonna be enough to keep people coming back to it? They need to develop something new for when these people who are now grown-ass adults, you know, start losing interest in that because they've been doing the same thing over and over and over again for too long.
See, I think another thing, I can't really be talking too much about this because at the end of the day, I'm not really much of a good contributing factor to all this because, unfortunately, yeah, I am the kind of person who buys Nintendo games regardless.
No, and I'm not trying to say that's a bad thing. It's more, for me, it's simply because it's what I grew up with and it's still what I actually really do love. No, absolutely.
But I understand where you're coming from. To attract a bigger, wider audience, you need to start engaging a little bit more in newer or more steady like games.
Yeah.
Like games that are a little bit more, well, a little stronger for starters. Or games that are just a little more...
bringing in a wider base of people. That's the big thing.
This shelf looks like it's a little hard to get to, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the chest, but it's not. It doesn't want me to.
It doesn't want you to stand on the shelf.
You have to use, like, Bravura on it or something when you go there later on.
I think it's like green Trinity Mark.
But yeah, I think... You know, because Nintendo... I'll try to use, like, an example here. Nintendo has kind of tried to cement themselves as a more, like, family-friendly console, right?
Yep.
So, if you wanted to... Because, like, kids now play video games because they're more readily available. It's not, you know, this, like, super rare thing anymore. Gaming culture is becoming part of the mainstream, which I think is fucking awesome. But if Nintendo wants to be the family-friendly console, be the family-friendly console. Focus on developing some new cool IPs that are geared towards kids instead of doing the same Mario game again or the same Pokemon game again and again and again. And do stuff that's gonna be more marketable for kids and really cement yourself as that console.
I feel like the problem is, like, Nintendo has what it takes to make games that are geared towards more intense people, and, like...
They don't.
Like, I think one big thing is if they had plastered any other name onto Paper Mario Sticker Star, I probably wouldn't have hated it nearly as much as I do. But unfortunately, their innovative idea for that franchise pissed a lot of fans off, and they never bothered to sit there and say, maybe we did something wrong, let's go and try something new. No, they just did it again. But I believe that like, they have what it takes to be a family-friendly
console that can also do things that are... You know, because, like, look at PlayStation. PlayStation's third-party, like, developers have made, like, some stuff that's really great for kids, but also, like, fucking phenomenal games for grown-ups, too. For, like, the more mature gamers, like, you know, people our age. Nintendo could do that, too, but they need to fucking get away from this thing that they will only be successful if they make Mario games, if they make Zelda games, if they put out a new Pokemon game every year. Like, it's just...
Pokemon's suffering from that, especially.
It is, because they're only making because Brilliant Diamond and...
Pearl... Okay, they haven't really been focusing so much on ports. They've been remaking the generations over time. Like, our last remake was Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire back in 2014.
But that still, again, goes to they're just remaking old games, then.
But it's not nearly as frequent, at the very least.
Okay. I'll concede to that, for sure.
At the same time, they also were responsible for making Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which are literally rehashing the same game they just made.
Yeah, that's...
Like...
They need to get away from that, otherwise they're gonna get eaten alive by the video game market.
I think one thing is, another big thing is the fans themselves. If you want them to change, you're going to have to stop just soaking up anything with the Pokemon name on it.
Yeah.
Like, if you ask me, I think Ryan's making a smarter decision right now in taking a bit of a break. Like, you said this might be one of the last Pokemon titles you really get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you were saying, like, it's just feeling like Pokemon's just kind of slipping.
Yeah.
Like, they're ones... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, Pokemon as a franchise is starting to suffer because of those annual releases. It's because they're not giving the developers enough time to really expand, or they're just basically, like, they have like a year or two to pump out a new Pokemon game. That's why when you see screenshots like Legends Arceus compared to Breath of the Wild, one is a Pokemon game that needs to be rushed out the door as soon as possible.
The other was
and yet the other is the next Legend of Zelda that had a lot of time put into it.
Exactly.
I think that actually can tie back to like the early history of like console stuff, because like back in the day when you had like, you know, the PS1 for example, you know, you had new games getting pumped out every year, like with Ratchet and Clank, right? Ratchet and Clank was one where they were doing a new game every year, right, for the first three. But because the consoles weren't as powerful back then, it almost made more sense to be doing it that way.
Yeah, but it's in comparison to today, games were a lot easier and faster to make in those days.
Exactly.
Because you had to work with the constraints of the system.
But Nintendo's doing that now, where they're pumping out new Pokemon or I say new, but I say that with extreme quotations. It's like they're doing that now, but it's like it's not great. Like I feel like what was the newest like original kind of thing with Pokemon? Sword and Shield, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weren't they not even like that well received?
They were
average.
They weren't seen as the greatest games in the franchise.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Pokemon fans will always, like the diehard Pokemon fans, will always eventually come around and say, "Oh yeah, these games are fantastic," because it just always happens.
And this is a good time. This would have been a good time to get Mark's opinion.
Well, Mark did very much like love Sword and Shield. You know what though? Mark was very fair towards Pokemon, the 7th generation of Pokemon. He was not a fan of those. Sun and Moon, Mark's not a fan of them. Like, we played them a lot, sure, but Mark goes back and he says, yeah, no, like, they were okay, but they weren't great.
You know what? Well, also might not be so great.
The next episode?
Yeah.
Well, hold on.
Wow.
Now listen here. We at 3 Dorks always pump. We do not. We're literally just playing games and talking.
I will probably consider this conversation next time.